When it comes to the solution, Ted Kaczynski follows the logic of the underpants gnomes. Step 1, destroy the industrial technological system. Step 2. Step 3, freedom. Better than food, man. Hello everyone, welcome to Better Than Food Book Reviews. I'm your host, Clifford Lee Sargent. Get that coffee. From Guatemala. Fantastic. Okay, first, a disclaimer. I do not support or condone violence, terrorism, or violent revolution. I fully reject Ted Kaczynski's actions and methods. While I find his ideas on technology and society worth discussing, I do not endorse his crimes or calls for violence. Today is Technological Slavery by the American author Theodore John Kaczynski, aka Ted Kaczynski, aka Uncle Ted, aka the Unabomber, published in 2022. Ted Kaczynski, for those of you who don't know, which is very few I imagine, was the man known as the Unabomber. He was a U.S. domestic terrorist who built and mailed homemade bombs which killed 3 people and injured an additional 23 over the course of about 17 years, from the late 70s to the mid-90s, when he was arrested after being turned in by his brother, David Kaczynski. The main core of this book is Kaczynski's infamous manifesto, Industrial Society and Its Future, originally published in 1995 in the New York Times and the Washington Post, after Kaczynski threatened to keep bombing people if they didn't publish it. That's one way to get published. I don't recommend it. The book also includes additional writings and a selection of Ted's responses to letters that further illuminate his ideas found in the manifesto, which is helpful because the manifesto is pretty short. You can get through it in a day. And it's very ordered. All the paragraphs are numbered, right? It's designed to be as accessible as possible, really. He authored the manifesto FC, which stands for Freedom Club. Freedom Club. The Freedom Club! Who doesn't want to join the Freedom Club? Ted Kaczynski was a math prodigy. He had an IQ of 167. He was technically a genius. He was studying mathematics at Harvard when he was 16. Then he got his PhD from the University of Michigan. While he was at Harvard, he spent 200 hours taking part in a notorious CIA experiment called MK Ultra, which subjected the participants to psychological torture with the goal of brainwashing. Kaczynski, however, said this wasn't the reason for his actions. I'm sure it didn't help. Later, he became an assistant professor at UC Berkeley at the age of 25. After becoming disillusioned, he moved to a remote cabin in the woods of Montana. And that's when the bombs started. He worked small-time jobs and received financial support from his family while trying to develop a life of self-sufficiency. That was one of his big goals. He became enamored with the French philosopher Jacques Ellul's book, The Technological Society, and then he started mailing bombs to people. It's a hell of a leap. Then one day Ted went to one of his favorite hiking spots and discovered a road had been built right through it. And that's when Ted lost it and dedicated himself to, as he put it, revenge. So I'll give you a summary of the book. Ted's thesis is that technological progress and freedom are in direct opposition to each other, and it's a zero-sum game. He believes that modern civilization, what he calls the industrial technological system, which he refers to just as the system, has left individuals powerless, humiliated, and doomed to suffer further indignities and enslavement as it progresses. He argues that humans did not evolve to be compatible with this way of life. According to Ted, technology destroys our critical necessity that he calls the power process, which he defines as our ability to make goals and exert effort to achieve at least some of them. To have control over our own lives, with an ability to take actions that have real significant consequences. And that the removal of this process results in, as he puts it, serious psychological problems. He asserts that because of the industrial technological system, nature and the environment will continue to be destroyed, we may be replaced by machines, remember he was writing this in 95, and catastrophe is unavoidable. Therefore, Ted believes that the only way to save ourselves is with a simultaneous, international, and total elimination of the techno-industrial system. Destroy it, without reform or mercy, by any means necessary, all at once, as soon as possible. He doesn't think reform is an option. He's calling for a global revolution against technology. He cites the French and Russian revolutions to demonstrate that this is possible. His logic is that, while the revolution will certainly be devastating and many will die, what's coming if we don't have this revolution will be far worse. Damned if you do, doomed if you don't, basically. What happens after the revolution is unknown, but, as I understand it, his idea is that anything is better than this. His idea seems to be that, after a colossal amount of human death and catastrophe, the survivors will re-emerge in smaller groups that are closer to nature and subsist like our ancestors did. Ted also provides a scathing attack on modern leftism, as he calls it, examining the psychology of modern leftists, claiming that they are a threat to his proposed revolution, as they are subconsciously loyal to the system itself and psychologically unstable, and therefore should be rejected by the movement. He criticizes conservatives too, but mostly leftists, as they seem to be the biggest threat to his proposal. So to confirm some of Ted's valid points in the book, are we becoming enslaved by technology? Yep. Do we have real consequential autonomy over our lives and society? Not enough. Is this resulting in serious psychological problems? Yep. Are we under increasing surveillance? They're watching me right now. Are we in danger of becoming critically dependent on and replaced by intelligent machines? Apparently, his warnings sound identical to the daily news. Will biotech change humans and remove us from the natural cycle? Seems likely. Do we have a risk of nuclear war with no end in sight? Absolutely. Again, daily news. Are we destroying the natural world? Indeed we are. Is the left psychologically unstable? Sometimes, but it's really the pot calling the kettle black here. Is all of this going to get worse? Yeah. So this is the power of the book. He could be right. He very well may be right on the money. But I have some thoughts. Technological slavery feels similar to Freud's Civilization and Its Discontents, which I recently reviewed. In fact, in the section Excerpts from Letters to M.K., Ted writes, "The problem of civilization is identical with the problem of technology." There you go. Ted's idea of over-socialization, the condition of people being unable to stop following the rules of the system without feeling a sense of guilt, reminded me of Freud's writings about guilt and the process whereby the mind punishes itself for perceived transgressions, having internalized the morals of society. It begins policing itself, right? They're very similar, actually. Ironically, Ted criticizes what he refers to as Freudianism in this book. It's a shame. I think Ted would have gotten a lot out of Freud's Civilization and Its Discontents. It might have really helped him, actually. Both texts diagnose a problem with the modern world, but it seems like they both arrive at the same conclusion. Civilization, or the system, makes us miserable. Freud believes our sexual and aggressive instincts are incompatible with civilization. So, therefore, we can't get what we want, which is, according to him, to be happy. He's right. Ted believes civilization, or the techno-industrial system, doesn't allow us to achieve freedom with the power process, and so instead we channel our time into never-ending inconsequential toil, what Ted refers to as surrogate activities. Things we give importance to but have no real consequence to our survival. Jobs, hobbies, artistic and intellectual pursuits, perhaps even including, though he doesn't mention it, writing incendiary manifestos. No doubt he'd find some way to justify it. But there's something suspicious here with Ted about forcefully trading surrogate activities for direct biological goals, even though they very well may be more primally satisfying. Ted's logic seems to be that in order to be free, we need to eradicate complexity and just be happy with base survival. And there's something sinister about this. It sounds like forced devolution. There's like this kind of purity thing he's got going. There's actually something disturbing about it in the same way that the genetic engineering that he discusses is disturbing. It's just the opposite direction. This forced move in one way or the other. Ted wants to go back. Technology wants to go forward. It could just be my conditioning to prioritize progress, but I'm not sure. Seems like it's got something ironically anti-human at its core. Kind of like, I can't get what I want and I'm supposed to be smart, so nobody can. Yeah, vengeful. I think a lot of people feel this way these days, particularly a lot of young men. And you can understand why, right? It is a crushing system, don't get me wrong. Ted just seems motivated by something he's not aware of. I don't think Ted was as self-aware as he thought he was. Obviously, I suppose. Ironically, Ted's attempts at initiating the destruction of the system through violent actions in hopes of gaining freedom for himself and presumably mankind gave him less freedom than ever as he was thrown in prison. In Civilization and Its Discontents, Freud does not propose a solution. In Technological Slavery, Kaczynski does, but it's highly destructive and incredibly vague. At the end of the day, Ted's solution is simply blow it up, right? The entire book is a well-written attempt to justify his desire for revenge. Basically, though much of the book is well-written and logically argued, when it comes to the solution, Ted Kaczynski follows the logic of the underpants gnomes. Step 1, destroy the industrial technological system. Step 2. Step 3, freedom. Until you're enslaved by the new feudal lords, of course. A post-technological society would probably look something like Cormac McCarthy's novel The Road. Starvation, enslavement, cannibalism. Not everywhere, not for everyone, of course, but more often than you and I'd be comfortable with, I imagine. Maybe not Ted, but I'm not saying he wasn't accurate in all his arguments or his diagnosis of the industrial technological system. No, he got a lot of stuff right. And many of his predictions may unfortunately come true. He just seems to have clearly started with a certain viewpoint and a desire for revenge, like he said. Also, okay, so you destroy the techno-industrial system. Now you have to force humans not to develop tools. That is, solve problems. Innovate. You have to force them to not be human. That's not freedom. That's slavery. That's going from technological slavery to regular slavery. You're just trading one slavery for another. Man, tough choice, but I think I'm good where I am. You have any idea how long it takes to grind beans manually for a cup of coffee? I've done it. It's awful. It's like 15 minutes of fucking, little hand grinder. Just going, and that's probably too much technology for Ted. It'd take you 45 minutes just to make a decent cup of coffee. Jesus Christ. Oh, no, of course, the import-export can't have that, so beans are out. So coffee's out. Coffee's gone. Coffee's completely gone, right? Perhaps we'd all be subject to weekly TED checks to make sure we're not being too innovative, too technologically driven, right? If you fail, you'd be given a TED talk and forced to listen to him read excerpts from his manifesto. The reinvention of soap would be punishable by death. Now, Ted doesn't lay the groundwork for the rules of a society post-techno-industrial system, but from what it appears, it's not the laws of the industrial technological system we'd follow, but rather the laws of Ted, I assume, unless one day we want another revolution. To quote the profoundly insightful and universally admired philosopher Ace Ventura, "Of course! How selfish of me. Let's do all the things that you want to do." In his manifesto, Ted wrote a reversal of the phrase, "You can't have your cake and eat it too." Funny coincidence about that phrase. I recently reviewed Harlan Ellison's I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, which is a short story about the last humans on Earth subjected to the horrors of a dystopian world ruled by a sadistic artificial intelligence. Also, coincidentally, the narrator of that story is named Ted. But regarding this line about cake, there's an interview with Ellison, link below, wherein he's going off on common grammar mistakes. "You can't have your cake and eat it too" is the last phrase he discusses. Outraged, insisting that the correct order is, "You can't eat your cake and have it too," in a kind of comedically arrogant demonstration of obsessive meticulousness. Ted Kaczynski shared that exact same obsessive meticulousness. The correct version, according to Ellison, was exactly what Ted wrote in his manifesto. The full line from his manifesto is, "As for the negative consequences of eliminating industrial society, well, you can't eat your cake and have it too." And that phrasing was one of the things that got Ted caught. Not only did he write it in his manifesto, but he also wrote it in a letter to his mother, an FBI agent noticed. Ted's pathological need to be right, combined with his arrogance, which probably alienated him from society and caused this whole shitstorm to brew in the first place, contributed to his arrest. So let's go back to post-industrial technological collapse. So Ted has no plan after blowing up the system. Regarding the world after the techno-industrial collapse, in the section Extract from Letter to J.N., Ted writes, "If the techno-industrial system collapses, the probable result will be a reversion to a situation roughly equivalent to that which existed several hundred years ago, in the sense that people will live under widely varying conditions in different parts of the world. There will be sickness and health, full bellies and starvation, hatred and love, brotherhood and ethnic bitterness, war and peace, justice and oppression, violence and kindliness, freedom and servitude, misery and contentment. But it will be a world in which such a thing as freedom will at least be possible, even though everyone might not have it." So it'll be like today, but a lot shittier. Literally. Today, freedom is possible for some. You just need enough money. It sucks, but at least there's a map, And yeah, you could argue, is that really freedom? Are you really free? And could your freedom be achieved easier back then without the monetary system, the global monetary system, and the surveillance everywhere? And could you have gained freedom easier back then? Maybe. Depends on the situation, I suppose, but maybe. But you would have been subject to a whole host of other problems, Nature for one. Other people, again, so, you're kind of... You can get pretty close today. You can go off grid, you can... But, yeah, you're still kind of wrapped up in the whole thing, to some degree. You can't quite escape it entirely. But you wouldn't be able to escape the risk of being subjugated back then either, unless you were really self-sufficient. But, God, that kind of isolation, though. It's an interesting question. I don't have the answer to it. I don't have the answer. How much freedom do you really want is the question. What kind of freedom is he really talking about, In the same section of the book, Ted gives a couple of reasons why, according to him, we have to destroy the system. I'm summarizing here. Number 1, human values will be rendered obsolete by technology. Number 2, technological progress will be uncontrollable. I agree both of these premises are likely, but I don't arrive at the conclusion to blow up the system, because neither of them are guaranteed, even if they seem to be. He's basing his decision to destroy civilization on hypotheticals. He views himself as the one individual who knows the truth against the whole society who has been duped. He's pushing for manufacturing a guaranteed disaster to avoid a theoretically larger disaster. He thinks he knows enough to make that call, And the most powerful truth of the book is that he might be right. He might be right. But the other truth, of course, is that he doesn't know. Neither do I. Nobody does. Hell, what if AI is the only thing that saves us from some hideous plague? It's totally possible. The twist, of course, would be when we found out that the plague was created by AI. Kaczynski's evidence for the preferability of life before the techno-industrial system is sparse. It consists of anecdotes about trappers, Native American tribes, the Mbuti pygmies in the Congo, frontier life, mountaineers, and Argentine gauchos. All of them are very interesting anecdotes and definitely add to the book. But in other words, it comes from books. It doesn't come from his lived experience. Ted never lived in a primitive society. I'm not convinced you could call him entirely self-sufficient when he lived in Montana. He did hunt and grow his own food, but he also received money from his family. Apparently, he once got in hot water with a game warden for cooking a coyote. The historical anecdotes in the book about life before the system are fascinating, but nothing to base a revolution on, you know? I also suspect tribal, primitive life ain't all it's cracked up to be, according to Ted. Sure, you get a level of visceral satisfaction using your body to survive, and stronger communal bonds. You're all in it together, right? Probably more time to sleep. That's all well and good. But you also get starvation and possibly weird customs like genital mutilation, for example. The destruction of the techno-industrial system would be catastrophic for men, assuming they lived through it. But for women, it would be abysmal. As Ted points out, there would not be equality. So sure, there's a level of freedom, but for who? Definitely not for women. Maybe for men. Until another stronger man or group of men comes along, right? That's how it goes. Then they kill you and take your women. And that's the history of the world. So to continue, primitive life might have been more meaningful in Ted's sense, where actions had direct and dire consequences. And we were forced, a word Ted uses to complain about the pressures thrust on us by modern technology, to use all our physical and intellectual capabilities at our disposal in order to survive. Of course, nowadays we're forced to use our intellectual capability. Ooh, hey, wait for it. The old gods. Of course, nowadays we're forced to use our intellectual capabilities much more than our physical. But technology partially came from a desire to alleviate physical suffering. Do we really desire physical suffering that much? I mean, some can be satisfying when you're working, sure. But do you want to live without electricity and be forced to hunt and gather, fish, make your own clothes, and more often than not smell like shit? Sure, some of it sounds nice. Kinda. Basically, do you want to go on a perilous camping trip filled with grueling labor for the rest of your life? With a small group of people whom you and your family depend on for survival? With them depending on you? But you're free from technology. You're free. You're free to embark on a series of endless grinding chores for the rest of your life with no retirement plan. But it beats taxes and traffic, right? Nah, on second thought, I think I'll take my cushy dystopian future filled with existential dread. Thanks. I'm not really sold, you know? All it takes for you is to sit down and think about it for 5 minutes. When you get down to it, what is the real appeal of Ted's ideal society? Especially given the mass death and destruction it requires. A physically active lifestyle, freedom from domineering invisible forces, and stronger relationships. But along with that comes, you know, violence, no plumbing, food scarcity, disease, and possible enslavement by visible forces. Same shit, different rulers, right? Less options. And assuming we weren't subjected to enslavement by humans, we still wouldn't be free. Just more physically miserable, subject to the laws of an indifferent nature, which technology was partially created to emancipate us from. I couldn't live in Florida without the AC, that's for damn sure. Ted doesn't like complexity as far as life. This is probably why he was into math, right? You know, making the complex discernible, calculating things, making them, you know, control. Ted is a man who did not like not having control. He hates feeling out of control. I get it, all of us do. But Ted really needed control, wanted control, and didn't have it. Ted appears to believe that if humanity behaves badly, there's something wrong with the system. It's the system's fault that they're behaving badly. His view of humanity sometimes feels, ironically, a little too rosy. As he writes in the manifesto, if a society needs a large, powerful law enforcement establishment, then there is something gravely wrong with that society. It must be subjecting people to severe pressures if so many refuse to follow the rules, or follow them only because forced. Many societies in the past have gotten by with little or no formal law enforcement. Oh yeah, if humans just follow their natural impulses in small groups with little or no law enforcement, everything will go just fine, and it's the system's fault if they misbehave. Okay, Ted. God, he is just an idealist at heart, seriously. He tries to hide it, but he really is. I wonder if he ever read Lord of the Flies. I mean, he's technically correct, there were societies like that, but man, I feel like I've I just heard this line of thinking before. Who was it? Yeah. Oh yeah, Rousseau. Humans are born pure and corrupted by evil society, right? Yeah. And what did Rousseau inspire? The French Revolution. Oh yeah. Which Ted cites as an example of a successful revolution. Huh. What did they do in the French Revolution again? Oh, just the worst shit you can possibly imagine, and then some. I think Ted even mentions Rousseau in the book. Remember the line Marie Antoinette was rumored to have said, but did not actually say, that fan the flames of revolution? Let them eat cake. Of course, they can't eat it and have it too, right, Ted? Rousseau wrote the line in his book Confessions, attributing it to a great princess, as he put it, which apparently was not Marie Antoinette. But it's curious. Ted uses his cake line in the exact same way that let them eat cake was used, to express indifference to catastrophic suffering. Anytime somebody dismisses something big with a line about cake, don't trust him. So was Ted right? Yes, in the sense that he accurately diagnosed some major problems with modern civilization. I get it. No, in the sense that his solution and ideal lifestyle and preconceived notions about human behavior are delusional, suspicious at best, and sometimes mean-spirited, but the guy was a terrorist. What did I expect, Ted isn't just warring with technology as he thinks. Ted is warring with the laws of human nature. He was a guy who felt tremendously disempowered, and revolution was his solution to his own lack of power. Technology is an extension of human nature, right? Ted doesn't seem to give much thought to the idea that technological systems are in fact inseparable from their human creators. I suspect it's human nature he hates. Humanity itself. His actions support this. By that, I mean, killing and injuring innocent people whom he identified as part of the system. It's very interesting that he used violent technology, bombs, supposedly as a method to achieve the destruction of violent technology. He's using the very malicious technology he's criticizing. He was a very intelligent, cunning weasel. Ted is full of contradictions. In the section Letter to David Skrbina, Ted writes, "The system makes people sick by subjecting them to conditions that are not fit for human beings to live in, and then it restores their ability to function by feeding them drugs." And that's terrible, no doubt, but his solution is the same problem. It's attacking the symptom, techno-industrial society, not the disease, human nature. Humanity uses technology to do its will. Ted treats technology almost as an alien creature hell-bent on the enslavement of humans. But it's just humans enslaving humans, and that's as much of a primitive staple as any. One to be fought against assuredly, but I'm saying, it's no different from the past. Ted's talking about the degrees, right? Yes, I understand, but you do it by the sword, you do it by the social security number, whatever. You're gonna be... if you're gonna be in a society, you're gonna be oppressed somehow. If there is more than one person in the room, you will somehow be oppressed. It was never in the best interest of any group, large or small, to give the individual total autonomy. Nothing would get done, and there would be no consequences for awful behavior. One must compromise, like in a relationship, which Ted never had. This is just a fact. Man is a social animal. Are social animals free? Absolutely not. There's often a dominance hierarchy. There is, to use Ted's term, a system. Total freedom is total chaos, even in small groups. In Ted's tribe, he'd probably be dealing with the same problems. So while Ted was prophetic, it's true, he was also a misanthrope. But he was a misanthrope who spoke partial truths. So you can see why a lot of young people these days heavily resonate with him, in a system that has treated them the way it has. Manipulating their currency, making it hard to get ahead. God knows what's in the pipeline. Hell, not even just young people, Ted's out there and he's popular, right? But you begin to wonder if Ted was just trying to manufacture a holocaust wherein the survivors would be subject to his ideals. He talks a good game, but there are some big holes, man. And I'm not talking about just the post-revolution plan, which is a huge question mark. I don't trust this guy at all, man. There's something really insidious about his nature. Ted is smart but not wise, observant, often correct, but there's a childish petulance that I just can't get past. There's a calculated callousness that pervades his text and sours his logic. What you get in technological slavery is the sense of a man who himself was once wrapped up in surrogate activities and did not feel in control of his own life. The book is a lashing out at a culture he felt alienated from and rejected by. This resulted in him literally attacking it. According to my research, Ted was a virgin. It appears that he was, by definition, an incel. This explains a lot. He was missing out on the fundamental experience of being human, being in love. What would that have changed? I would guess everything. This is important to understand as he's writing a manifesto that advocates actions that, if taken, would destroy a substantial amount of the world's population. If you can't have the most basic relationship with another human being, then you are not fit to order the destruction of the world. It's just one of my principles. Call me crazy, I know, but I'm very conservative with that one. Ted seems to argue for natural selection, but he himself was not selected. I imagine this caused him horrific pain and confusion, At first, for a period in his 20s, Ted thought he wanted to be a woman. Maybe he thought that would bring him freedom. Then he decided it was the system that was keeping him down. Look, the grass is always greener. Doesn't mean you need to go bomb people. Ted was not loved, and I think this is what you really need for his power process, the ability to have a deep physical connection with another human being. I think this is why Ted's so popular, because so many people, especially young men, are not loved. So many people are unloved. And modern technology exacerbates this, it's true. And there is something fundamentally insulting to human dignity, a phrase Ted uses often, about being forced to find love using modern technology, with dating apps and social media. Again, Ted got some stuff right. It's our responsibility to navigate life. There will always be forces we're subject to beyond our control, even our own minds, which Freud got right, and which was perhaps the case with Ted, though I doubt he'd admit it. In 2023, after being diagnosed with rectal cancer, Ted hung himself from a handicap rail in his cell using shoelaces. In the end, this is all an epic and deeply sad story. Not only for Ted's victims, of course, but also for Ted and also for us as well, because of what he might have predicted. Nobody gets out of this one unscathed. The more I researched him, the more I just felt incredibly bad for the guy. He was brilliant, but man, did he have some psychological problems. It destroyed his life, and the lives of many others. But it's a great read. Provokes some excellent, though inconclusive conversations with yourself and others. Eerily inconclusive. And no matter how confident I am in dismissing him, no matter how much I can see through the logical shortcomings of his arguments and the disaster of his life, in some moments, particularly when I'm listening to the news these days, I can't shake the dread that regarding the system and technology, maybe, just maybe, he was right. We all feel that this is a deeply unnatural way to live. Ted references a quote from Steve Wozniak, co-founder of Apple, predicting that AI will turn us into pets. I've heard that idea emerge again recently. Ted represents the defiant quality of mankind that refuses to be reduced to a pet. And that is admirable. But not everything he did was admirable. Not at all. Is it better to cling to the violent past or the violent future, when one doesn't know anything about the outcome of either and both have tremendous pros and cons? It's like the economist Thomas Sowell said, there are no solutions, there are only trade-offs. Better than food. 4 out of 5 coffees. I don't want to mislead you with my criticisms. I highly recommend it. Especially for now. It put me on an absolute roller coaster of emotions, filled with strong agreements and disagreements. My opinion would shift daily, sometimes hourly. It will psychologically tear you apart. It'll blow you away. Sorry, poor taste. My wife listened to the manifesto as well, and we come back and forth, and our opinion would have completely changed by the end of the day. It went something like, he's kind of right, to, no, he's totally wrong, to, fuck, he's right, shit. These are questions worth thinking about, and while I don't agree with him overall, man, he's got some sharp points in there. It's unsettling. Because you know something's wrong, and something's coming. Something big. We all do. But we don't know how to fix it. The annihilation of civilization is not a solution. It does not help with the uncertainty of living, I'll guarantee that. But I don't know if it's going to be an epic collapse. I picture something different. Something dumber. What was the line from Brad Pitt about the guy's name in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Nah, something dumber than that. I suspect the reality of technological progress will likely be more like what Michel Houellebecq wrote in an essay, linked below, about the pandemic lockdowns. And in that essay, Houellebecq wrote, "We will not wake up, after our confinement ends, into a new world. It will be the same, but a bit worse." Yeah, the same, but a bit worse. Take care out there, y'all. We're gonna make it. It's just gonna be weird. Soak in the negative capability. That's what I'm trying to do, at least. Accept the radical instability of life. Welcome the chaos. So who should read it? Well, if you enjoyed Freud's Civilization and its discontents and you're also into Edward Abbey, George Orwell, and Aldous Huxley, pick this up right away. And with that, coffee time. For those of you who are new, thank you very much for stopping by and watching the show. I take all the names of the patrons on Patreon who are financially supporting the show and I place their names in this mason jar. And for every review, I pull out a name. And whoever's name I pull out, I send a hard copy of the book I'm reviewing, plus a bag of coffee, roasted by yours truly. And the coffee is delicious. Currently from Brazil. If you would like to get in on that and help support the show, I sincerely appreciate it. Thank you very much. You can click on the link below or go to patreon.com/books-are-better-than-food, and the tiers start at $5 per video. I make about 3 to 4 videos a month. Please don't forget to set a monthly limit if you're on a budget. Though if you do set a limit, please allow for at least 3 monthly charges in order to get the video call perk. That's for the $10 per video plus tiers. Oh, it's starting to rain. In addition, for becoming a paid patron, you'll get access to all this cool stuff. Wow, it is really starting to come down out there. And international shipping is included. However, unfortunately, I can't send coffee to the UAE or Qatar. Thank you very much to all my patrons for helping me keep this project going. It really means a lot, and best of luck. Okay, here we go. Carlos. Carlos M. Thank you very much, Carlos. Really appreciate it. You're going to receive Technological Slavery by Ted Kaczynski. Plus a bag of coffee, roasted by yours truly, and hope you love both. Cheers, man. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed this, and always remember, die reading. Alright. Great to see you as always. Take care of yourselves. Have a good night, and I'll talk to you soon. Ciao.